Hi, Mavericks. Thank you for joining us for another edition of Trailblazer Talks. We're lucky today to be joined by the man who literally wrote the book on Bitcoin, Randall Ware. He is the author of Bitcoin Unlocked, The Proof of Work Revolution. So they say it's backed by time, powered by energy, and made for the people. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for giving us your time today. And to break this all down, I receive so many questions all the time from individuals about Bitcoin, cryptocurrency. I've done a few Malbrue Minutes on the topic, and of course that unleashed the floodgates of questions from individuals. So who is Bitcoin Unlocked written for?
It's for your everyday person, your young people, married people, retirement, and your people who are retirement age, seniors, just anybody who want to know more about Bitcoin but scared because most of the books out there is just technical books.
Right.
You know, so this is going to be a refreshing, easy read, but with a strong enough foundation where you come back like, wow, I really need to give this more attention.
Exactly, because a lot of people are afraid of what they don't know about, right? And as you mentioned, everything is so technical. So how do you help people within this book overcome the idea that it's too complex for your average layperson?
Well, I start off by just going into a little bit about history. How did we get here? You know, and then looking at what money was and what it is now, and how money used to be backed by a concept we call proof of work, meaning that it was backed by a commodity where you gave time and energy, like gold, right? Gold doesn't just pop out of thin air like we print money out of thin air. It has to be mined. It has to be given time and energy to extract it from the earth. So how do we get back to those principles? And Bitcoin allows us a path forward to getting back to something that we can back our time and energy with something that also is backed by time and energy, like digital gold, Bitcoin.
Right, and you know, you hear oftentimes from our elders, you know, to hold on to your gold. I have, you know, gold coins from my grandmother who's been deceased over 20 years now, because gold has had so much value for so long, you know, as the dollar fluctuates. For someone who's new to the market, who want to listen to their elders, if we're no longer mining gold in that way because of the value, and now we're shifting in a way to additionally Bitcoin, are they ahead of the curve or are they behind at this point if they're new to the market?
I think they're just in time.
Okay.
You know, they're just in time, and the book goes over a concept of Satoshis. What a lot of people, the reason why they feel they're behind is because they look at what the price was before, and then they look at, oh, it's $117,000. I can't even afford that. But the book is going to show you why you shouldn't be looking at that unit price, where you should be looking at something called the Satoshi. You know, the divisibility of Bitcoin that breaks down one Bitcoin to 100 million Satoshis. And that's going to be very important that people understand the difference. And they're going to see how early they are then.
Okay. Yeah, and I think we'll need an entirely new an additional segment of Trailblazer Talk just to talk about Satoshis and break that down for the newcomer into the market. But what's been the most surprising use case for crypto that you've encountered as in everyday life that people wouldn't even consider that it was a factor?
That happened for me at the end of last year. You know, when through Jack Mallers, who's the CEO of Strike, made it where we could now get paid our paychecks in Bitcoin. You know, and then the second thing was the government just last month, June 25th, now instructed Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac that they now have to count Bitcoin assets as one of the assets when a person's trying to qualify for their home.
Wow, that is really going to be huge for the market, and that's a game changer for young people who want to enter into the housing market as well. So what would that mean for someone who's in the market, and whereas the government has really looked at credit score and other assets in factoring whether you qualify for a loan?
That means it's at the rate that Bitcoin is growing. That means if they're saving toward a home, the growth toward that home is their savings toward their home is going to happen faster, because we know that if you just merely just put your savings in the bank, it's not going to grow at all. So trying to save for that house is going to take a lot more money and a lot more time to get that home. And what I'm talking about today, don't misconstrue it as financial advice. I'm sharing what I know and what works for me. And I think it's important that we all, and whenever we're learning something, share with each other so we all can grow.
Absolutely. And that's why we can always appreciate individuals like yourself who can, put it in what I call, and I don't want me to be reductive, but putting it in Peter Rabbit language, essentially, so that people can understand what's usually presented as a more technical perspective, because we've seen the U.S. government make an elaborate shift into digital currency. So with that, how do you see the federal government digital dollar ambitions fitting into the broader cryptocurrency ecosystem?
I believe most people around the world, they want dollars, right? And so I believe that initially, as Bitcoin takes off, it will strengthen the dollar, because wherever you hold Bitcoin, you can change it easily to the digital dollar that they at some point will happen. I don't think it will happen as a central bank digital currency, but it will happen through things like the Genius Act once that's passed. And so it'll be done through private companies like Tether, which that is pegged to the dollar, and so people will be able to have easier access to dollars. So if their country is not buying the dollars, they'll be able to get the dollars because no one controls Bitcoin.
Right. That's very true. And you touched on the Genius Act. I have audience members now who would be keenly interested in the regulatory market, as the U.S. government is now treating cryptocurrencies as a commodity. So in your perspective, what does that mean now for the market as a whole, in the U.S. shift to regulating it as a commodity?
Now, the only one they have as a commodity is Bitcoin.
Okay.
Now, and I think, and that you brought that up, I think it's important, because even myself, it's kind of hard because they kind of use them interchangeably. And so, but I think it's important now that all of us start to draw that line between, one is investment with the hope of getting something back, like Ethereum or, any of the other like cryptocurrencies that you see out there. They're more like Microsoft, like investments. But Bitcoin doesn't have any central control from anybody, no CEO. So think about it. If there's a CEO or founder that's around, then that's going to most likely be a security. If there's no centralized control, nobody controls it, like nobody controls gold. You got to go dig it up if you want it. Anybody can dig it up, right? Then Bitcoin's the same way. It's a digital commodity, which the Bitcoin Reserve Act, the Strategic Reserve Act, calls digital gold.
And we were talking about mining earlier in the segment, and how you mine for gold, but there are now countries who are mining Bitcoin, and I use that. Can you kind of explain some of those countries and what it means that they're mining this digital currency?
There's two that I can call to mind in particular. El Salvador, which was on a radar first for making Bitcoin legal tender along with the dollar.
Okay.
Right? And then they started to use their volcanoes to mine Bitcoin using clean energy. But the country that came along later that's actually been mining it in secret, sort of, was Bhutan. And they have the largest amount of Bitcoin. So imagine that, you are able to mine something when the IMF is just really like giving you money that, people have a bad taste in their mouth about that. But now countries are able to mine something that's growing in value. That's kind of like a huge shift.
It's a game changer. And where do you see the U.S. fitting into that? I feel like from what I've been monitoring, reading certain headlines and watching the shift and more focus being put on digital currency, the U.S. is just catching up to countries like El Salvador and Bhutan.
We're actually, we might be ahead.
Oh, okay.
Because you got to look at where all the companies, BlackRock, Strategy, Riot. What Riot is like a mining company.
Okay.
We have some of the largest mining operations here all over this country. So I think we are sort of like in a first mover position, but we can't afford to sleep on that though.
Okay. Yeah, and I know in terms of the individuals, as I mentioned, who are keenly paying attention to the regulatory market and where the U.S. goes with this. So it's encouraging to hear that we are in fact leading, but which is also important that they stay up to date by reading your book, and if there are any other suggestions and what they could do as countries remain leaders in this space, and the digital currency acceptance is even growing. In addition to purchasing and reading your book, so it's novel, any other key points that you'd like to point out?
I would say get started now.
Okay.
And the reason why I want to focus the attention on learning about what is a Satoshi, because it is Bitcoin, knowing that like $1 can equal 100 pennies. We know that one Bitcoin is equal to 100 million Satoshis, and it's becoming harder and harder to buy those Satoshis because the dollar is getting weaker and weaker. And so I would say learn about it and stack as much sats, what they call
Sats.
Satoshis.
Okay.
Stack sats.
Stack your sats. I love that. I'm surprised I hadn't seen that on a lot more T-shirts. so somebody, you guys are going to take this and market that
Yes,
right
stack
there. If it's not
sats.
already yours, Randall.
Nope, not mine.
All right, there we go. But I want to kind of go back a bit to where we were discussing the shift to the commodities market, and you raised some very key points. But are there any risk, as you have experienced in now regulating as a commodity?
I would say since I've been getting paid in Bitcoin, I haven't really noticed any fluctuations in my pay. What I have noticed is that I've been getting more money.
Okay, look at
right?
that.
And I think that's because the retailers were the first buyers, the everyday people, but now you have all these institutions, retirement funds, countries, companies buying all of this Bitcoin now, and it's making the market get more stable.
Okay. All right.
But it's also taking up more of the Bitcoin, making the price go up.
Okay. So, and it kind of goes hand in hand with what I was mentioning. If anyone's behind the curve, they're just getting into the market. But as you understand it and as you've experienced, I think there's still value as it grows, and that you've been able to grow your net worth and being able to, receive payment via Bitcoin. So if you want to explain kind of that juxtaposition with regard to how, Bitcoin could perhaps be going up, even though it looks like perhaps your dollar value is not exactly where it is.
When you look at my home, right, in 2015, my house at $160,000 when Bitcoin was $100 per unit, right? At $160,000, it would have cost 1,600 Bitcoin to buy my home, right? Now, fast forward to 2025, my house costs $365,000. Now you notice I didn't say my house is valued at, because to me that's making people confused. It costs more dollars because the dollar has gotten weaker. But how many Bitcoin does it cost for my house now? About 3.5. So instead of 16, if I would have bought Bitcoin instead of bought my house and bought 1,600 Bitcoin, I could buy thousands of my home now.
Very key. We'll have to definitely come back and pull from that conversation a lot more, because I think that as we're talking about the changes in the regulatory market and that Bitcoin is now considered one of your assets when you're looking to get a lending for your home,
which is huge.
Right, and we look at the valuation or the cost of a home, as you look at how it works hand in hand with the cost of Bitcoin. So I usually like to end the Trailblazer Talk with, a fun question. So a lot of the spaces I'm in, I have a conversation about cryptocurrency, AI, and the like. If AI and cryptocurrency could have a conversation today, what do you think that conversation would be like?
For all of those creators out there that's excited about AI, because I believe that AI won't replace people. AI will be good for those who are using it. It will replace those who don't, right? And so what I'm excited about is that now it's going to evolve to a point to where you actually have little bot workers working for you online through the internet, and they'll help to exchange payments. And their payment will be in the form of exchanging Bitcoin between, like, let's say, my bots or engaging with your bots. And so the natural currency, I believe, would be Bitcoin for them to exchange to get each other's work done that we need to get done.
Very interesting. So it'll work hand in hand. Everything's really coming full circle.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Randall, we definitely have to circle back. I know there were a lot of pins I had to put in some stuff, partly because I need to dive in and read the book so that I can ask some additional articulate questions on the subject matter. But I cannot thank you enough for scratching the surface with us. But you all have to stay tuned for episode 2 of our conversation around digital currency, certainly with, as I mentioned, the man who wrote the book. Everyone, whenever this book is available, I think it'll be available soon.
It's available now.
Oh, it's available now. Great. And
on
as I
Amazon.
understand it, there's a little something on Amazon.
Yeah. With every purchase, not only are you going to take you on a journey of learning about and how to get Bitcoin, but I'm actually going to give Bitcoin with every purchase of the book.
Amazing.
I've never seen anybody do that. They just write technical books, but then they never tell you how to get started, and they don't part with some of their Bitcoin either and give it to you.
Right, exactly. So they're he's actually lacing this book with gold. So everyone going
digital
out
gold.
Grab it.
Digital gold.
Absolutely. All right.
Awesome.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of Trailblazer Talk. I'm Brandeis Malbrue Parkman. Thanks for joining.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Randall.